A Des Moines woman faces charges. She's accused of trying to swindle an older Iowan out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Sherry Fuller is charged with dependent adult abuse and exploiting an older individual. Police say the victim in the case was unable to make his own decisions. Court records show that Fuller falsely obtained power of attorney over the man and tried to take nearly $400,000 out of his bank account. She is also accused of charging $7,000 to his credit card. Documents show all of that money was returned. Tonight, we are getting our first look at what the Des Moines Airport's new terminal will look like. The airport released these renderings for the first phase of the project. There are still more to come. The airport expects a full design next April. That's also when the airport plans to officially break ground on the project. Some utility work will start this fall. However, the airport says it still needs to fully fund the new terminal.
We still are showing a $54 million gap to get the first phase done, but there's several more years of federal dollars to apply for, and we continue to look at other avenues, any other avenue, where we may be able to narrow that gap.
The first phase is expected to cost about $400 million. The entire project will cost about $770 million. The new terminal is expected to open in 2027. In Commitment 2024 news tonight, another Republican presidential candidate is working to win over Iowans. Conservative radio host Larry Elder spoke in Des Moines in support of the Enforce the Law Act. The law would create an ethics commission to oversee county attorneys across the country, and that commission would be able to remove prosecutors who, quote, refuse to follow the law.
I'm targeting these DAs that are not enforcing the law, that are not bringing charges against people or bringing charges that are insufficiently severe.
Elder also pointed to examples where he thinks prosecutors have overstepped. One of those is the case of Daniel Perry. He's the retired Marine charged with manslaughter after choking a homeless man to death on a New York subway. Perry says the man was acting erratically. He argues he was protecting other people on the train. KCCI is following the candidates as they make their way through Iowa. You can find all our political coverage, including one-on-one interviews with the candidates, online at kcci.com. A new rule in women's basketball is being called the Caitlin Clark rule, and it would have definitely helped the Hawkeyes in the national championship game last April. Sports Director Scott Reister is here to explain the change. Scott?
So first, it's important to remind everyone that getting a technical foul in college is really bad because it counts as a personal foul, and that's why this is such a big change with this new rule. In the second half of the title game, Iowa was trying to come back. Clark did not get the ball back to the ref and was called for delay of game. And since Iowa had already gotten a delay of game call, Clark's mistake resulted in a technical against her. It was her fourth foul and impacted how aggressive she could be down the stretch. The new rule says that a delay of game call is going to result in a technical foul against the team, but not an individual player. So moving forward, the other team would still get a free throw and the ball in this situation, but the player that caused the delay would not pick up a personal foul. Stacey?
Scott, thanks. New at 6, the candidates for Des Moines mayor are weighing in on some of the big issues facing the city. Connie Boesen, Denver Foote, and Josh Mandelbaum all took part in a forum earlier this week. And one of the first questions was how the candidates would tackle gun violence in the city. Des Moines police say they saw a drop in homicides in 2022, but the city is seeing more non-deadly shootings.
Common sense gun laws. I think that we need to get rid of any of the assault rifles. We need to make sure that people that have had domestic abuse do not have rights for guns. We need a waiting period. We need a lot of things that we need to have the state implement that we can do. And then we need to get to the root cause of why we were having violence. We need to get with our youth and understand their needs and how we can show them a different way and give them opportunities.
I believe we need to work closely with our school board to talk to the youth. I also believe that we need to open our public buildings to host Stop the Bleed trainings, gun safety trainings. I also agree that we do not need domestic abusers to have guns in their hands.
We started talking about violence interruption and treating gun violence like a public health problem. And that led us to partnering with Cure Violence and introducing violence interruption into the city. We're working with Creative Visions to implement Cure Violence now. We need to implement solutions like that in more parts of our community.
Current Des Moines Mayor Frank County has not announced plans to run for re-election. The election is November 7th of this year. You can watch what the candidates had to say about the future of policing and helping the homeless on KCCI.com. New at 6, if you are a musician in Des Moines, you have likely seen this face in the crowd. Wendy Hull was Des Moines' biggest and most influential music fan. She died unexpectedly last week, and now musicians hope that you will honor her memory by supporting local music the way she did.
Wendy was like the most passionate local music fan that anyone could ever meet.
Wendy Hull may have been the most well-known fan of Iowa musicians. She managed a Facebook page, Wednesday's Notes, where she interviewed local musicians and spread information on events.
I mean, it's just, she loved music. She was such an advocate for just the community of music, and not being a musician herself, just, it's kind of different when you see somebody that isn't a musician and they have so much support for it.
Wendy's sister says music was a priceless passion of hers and that music was in her soul. She was also known for always putting others ahead of herself.
She was so caring and really was asking about how musicians are doing. You know, healthcare for musicians was something she was passionate about and she talked a lot about.
She supported musicians of all genres and wanted to bring people in the Des Moines music scene together.
Wendy seemed to break those barriers. I mean, she would come to my shows and she would end up sitting there talking about Damon Dotson and all these other artists. And she's like, hey, have you seen them? So it wasn't that she was just coming to my show to appreciate what I was doing. She was pumping and talking about all these other artists that she was seeing just to make sure that I was aware of them.
Her family invites anyone to say goodbye at her services tomorrow and Saturday. Information is on the Wednesday's Notes Facebook group.
She was just a friend to all of the musicians who were performing. I think any scene, any musician would be lucky to have someone like Wendy in their life.
Sharing their dreams, the new incubator for Black and brown businesses in Des Moines, and the entrepreneur who is already seeing results. A guilty plea in a cancer scam, how much an Iowa woman stole by ripping off a story of survival.
An air quality alert across eastern Iowa as smoke continues to stream in. When those clouds and smoke will clear and when temperatures cool back down in your Storm Team 8 forecast.
This is Iowa's news leader, KCCI 8 News at 6.
And historic Iowa business is looking toward the future. Today marks 2 years since a fire tore through Dobson Pipe Organ Builders in Lake City. This morning, the company unveiled what its new workshop will look like. This is the facility that will be built in the exact same spot as the original Dobson building. The company is hosting a groundbreaking July 5th. A Des Moines woman took a chance and opened her business during the pandemic in 2021, and the gamble paid off. Only on KCCI, Nicole Tam explains how the entrepreneur hopes to share a bigger dream with the community.
When Christine Johnson moved to Des Moines from Chicago, she wanted to share a taste of home with Iowans. Oxtail, jerk chicken, sweet potatoes, soul food.
So it's to fill in the gap for people who miss home, who miss their grandmother's cooking, their mother cooking.
Johnson turned her recipes into the Joppa experience and opened up shop at Merle Hay Mall in 2021.
It's a place of coming to be able to eat and enjoy soul food and allow families to come in and gather.
2 years later, she's ready to expand the experience.
It's okay to take a chance on yourself. It's okay to jump out here and be an entrepreneur, and you can do it if you put in hard work and continue to push and drive.
She's hoping to open her new restaurant on 6th Avenue by the end of the year. The challenge is fundraising $50,000 to renovate the space. Funding is an issue that many businesses run into, but the solution may be less than a block away. Marcus Ashworth wants to help empower Black and brown communities through the Center at 6.
It's the culmination of history, it's the culmination of everything our community needs all wrapped into one.
The need for this type of space is great in Des Moines. Nearly a dozen tenants are ready to move in before groundbreaking.
When you have a community like mine who's been marginalized, it deserves that extra attention.
Both Johnson and Ashworth believe this growth of opportunity is something that will turn into a movement.
It's a floodgate that's opening. We're here and we're not going anywhere.
A movement that allows business owners like Johnson to turn her dreams into reality. Nicole Tam, KCCI 8 News, Iowa's news leader.
And we can't wait to see this happen. Groundbreaking for the Center at 6 is this Sunday at 1 o'clock. If all goes well, tenants should be open for business by next fall. New at 6, an Iowa woman is admitting to ripping off the story of a cancer survivor. Madison Russo pleaded guilty to theft yesterday. Police say she used a California woman's photos to fake her own cancer diagnosis. She scammed donors out of $37,000. It's unclear what penalty she will face. A sentencing date has not been set. A walkway connecting two major Des Moines roads looks a lot prettier tonight. Take a look. This is the new art that adorns the staircase between Ingersoll and Grand Avenues. Jordan Sandquist and Chris Sullivan painted the image of this koi swimming upstream. Japanese legend says if a koi swims upstream far enough, it turns into a dragon. It symbolizes strength, patience, and perseverance. The project also includes improvements to the stairs themselves with new lighting and new landscaping. That is gorgeous. Iowa's dry weather is getting worse. The latest drought monitor shows nearly all the state is abnormally dry. More than 80% of Iowa is in some sort of drought right now, and it couldn't come at a worse time. Fireworks stands are already popping up ahead of the 4th of July holiday, but experts say you can celebrate safely.
Have a bucket of water handy, 5-gallon bucket. If you're lighting off some of the bigger ones, it's always a good idea to just douse them down after they've gone off and after they're out and everything. Just douse them down, let them sit, don't touch them till the next morning.
Audubon and Scott counties already have burn bans in place, but that could change in the coming weeks. Now, not every city allows fireworks, so make sure you check your local ordinances. And Chris, we really could use some rain around here.
We could, and this is the departure from normal over the last 30 days. And you look to the south, about 10% of what we would typically see over the course of a month. A quarter up towards Carroll, nearly 10% of normal up towards Algona. We had some downpours and thunderstorms across central Iowa, the immediate central part of the state, earlier in the month, but that has been it. There's a pretty nasty complex of thunderstorms moving across parts of Kansas, the panhandle of Oklahoma, and into Texas as well. And as you look at the amounts of rain that we're expecting here over the next few days, this goes through the day on Saturday. Meager amounts, maybe a quarter to a half an inch for a few lucky individuals. Otherwise, it's fairly dry, and this means we don't even break even if we see a quarter inch of rain over that span of time. Air quality is the other big headline east of Interstate 35. It does include Ames, by the way, and Marshalltown. This is why smoke. Tons of it coming down out up towards Alberta as well. We're seeing fires reigniting there and up into Quebec. So coming at us from both directions, and that means air quality is poor, especially eastern Iowa. But we have unhealthy air quality for sensitive groups. Again, people with pre-existing respiratory conditions across the central part of the state. It's a big concern. Temperatures tonight bottom out into the mid 60s overnight. There's a live look outside. By the way, we did log our first 90-degree day of the year. It's been exceptionally warm, but we haven't had a first 90 because of the smoke. Remember, we've had a lot of upper 80s, and that's what's made May and the first half of June very, very warm. We did make it to 90. We're back down to 89. That's the current temperature outside. Widespread high 80s and low 90s still across the area tonight. As we dip back into the upper 50s and low 60s tonight, we'll see smoky conditions again, but otherwise starlit skies. Tomorrow's temperatures peaking into the mid and high 80s. Another hot day across the area, more smoke, and again, it'll be a little while before we clear it out. Your 8-day forecast shows that there are some thunder chances as we head into Father's Day weekend, unfortunately. Both Saturday and Sunday hold a chance for a shower or storm, but we'll take what we can get at this point, right? With such dry conditions across the area. Unfortunately, it has to come over the weekend. Next week's looking just as hot. Temperatures into the upper 80s and low 90s with limited chance for rain.
Well, the youngest McCaffrey son was asked about his college basketball future, and the answer was a big surprise.
Get caught up on local news, originals, and more. Download the Very Local app and stream for free today. Now, here's Sports Director Scott Reister with KCCI 8 Sports, powered by Carl's Auto Group.
You know, most people thought it was a given that Fran McCaffrey's youngest son, Jack, would follow Connor and Patrick and suit up for dad, Fran, at Iowa. But Jack is saying now, not so fast. Jack McCaffrey, about to be a senior at Iowa City West, is a 4-star recruit and the 51st rated player overall in the nation. The 6'7" small forward told 24/7 Sports that he doesn't see himself a Hawkeye. Quote, "I don't think I will go there. I made that up in my mind a while ago. I want to get away from home. I talked to my parents and brothers about it, and I think that's the best thing for me," end quote. He also told 24/7 Sports that Ohio State and Notre Dame are already recruiting him. Wow. What a way to end the minicamp for the Kansas City Chiefs. The Super Bowl champs will get their rings tonight. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce and company are the favorites to win it again. But there are concerns in KC. The leader of the defense skipped training camp over contract issues. Defensive tackle Chris Jones wants an extension. He's heading into the final year of a 4-year, $80 million contract he signed in 2020. Last year, he was a monster, tied for 4th in the NFL in sacks with 15.5. But he's only the 8th highest paid defensive tackle in the league. The Chiefs are hopeful they can work out a deal by the start of training camp next month.
Chris knows that we love him here. He's been a part of this team for a long time. He's one of the main reasons that we've had the success that we've had. He's been that leader on the defense.